Gabby Oglesby here, a cybersecurity influencer from IdentityIQ, Identity Theft Protection Services. It's International Women's Day and Women's History Month. We're celebrating influential women in tech and cybersecurity. We're here today with Alyssa Miller. Alyssa is a hacker, security evangelist, public speaker, and co-host for the Uncommon Journey podcast. She's also on the board of WiFi, a community for women and girls to meet, support, and bond with each other and make awesome new friends. Hi, Alyssa.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, of course. Let me just change the view. Okay, cool. So this is a really exciting time for you. You just spoke at one of the largest cybersecurity conferences in the world this week, RSAC, San Francisco, and you spoke on 2 panels about deepfakes and personal branding, right?
Well, so the panels were actually, one was about supply chain security and GDPR. The other panel was the one on personal branding. The deepfakes talk was actually, that was my solo talk here at RSA.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, cool. How did that go?
It was great. So yeah, I mean, terrific crowd at both. The RSA talks, the personal branding was at an event called She Speaks Security, which RSA does every year for the last couple, I guess, to try to bring more women into RSA. They've been long, I guess, bashed or whatnot, or criticized for having a very male-heavy presence, and they struggle to get women to apply to their CFP and to submit talks, and so they're trying to raise those numbers. And She Speaks Security is a seminar that they do to try to encourage more women and to help inspire women to do that.
Oh, I love that they're doing that now. That's really cool. What were your biggest takeaways from the conference?
I think, so the theme of the conference is the human element. And I think what I've seen throughout the conference is that every conversation, no matter what technology we've been talking about or anything else, it all seems to come back to that. And there's always, I think we're actually seeing a bit of a trend within security now that people are thinking more and more about the fact that we've tried to use technology to fix these problems for 60 years. And we're not doing any better than we were 60 years ago when we invented the first password on a computer system.
Yeah.
So I think we're starting to see that really addressing that human element. I mean, even the deepfakes talk I did was really the lesson learned that I wanted people to take away. And I saw it actually got tweeted out by RSA afterwards. It's not a technology problem; it's a human problem.
Wow. Okay. That's so interesting. So thank you for sharing all that, by the way. So how long have you been working in the cybersecurity space?
So I've been in security for 15 years. I was a developer in a fintech company, and then through a roundabout way sort of got pulled into their security testing team. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
Wow. That's so cool. How did you kind of get started in this line of work? I think I read on your blog that you said you received your first computer when you were 12.
Yeah, I actually bought my first computer when I was 12.
Wow.
How many kids do that, right? I mean, and we're talking back, and here's where I'm going to date myself. We're talking, late 80s. And
oh my gosh.
yeah, I went out, I was 12 years old. I went out, and actually I was a little younger than that. I got a paper route, and I started saving up money. I saved up, I think, somewhere a little over $1,000, and went to Best Buy, bought myself a computer and a printer. I mean, this was a time, late 80s, most homes did not have a personal computer. And so, my family didn't have a computer. And I was, here's me, little 12-year-old me, I've got a computer in my bedroom. That was pretty cool. And,
wow.
But, I never really saw it as a career. And so when I went to college, I mean, I started as a pre-med major. I had every intention of being a doctor. But but 3 semesters of college chemistry kind of changed my mind. And so I was kind of scrambling, looking to change majors. And by this point, I'd taught myself how to program on my computer. And, I was doing some basic programming. And I saw that they had a computer science degree at this university. And so I looked at it, what it involved, and I saw, it was programming. I'm like, oh, I know how to program. This would be an easy career or easy change. And I can go over and make that my major. So I did. And, this is during the dot-com boom. And so I ended up finding a full-time job as a programmer while I was still in school.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, crazy, right? So I joined this fintech company. I'm working on banking systems at, the age of 19 while I'm still attending school. And I did that for about 9 years. And then one of the women from the security team who I'd worked with on a number of different projects, she came to me and she said, I'd like you to come join our security team and be on the security test team and do pen testing. And so this is, what year would that be? Maybe 2006. Not a lot of companies at that point had their own pen testing teams. And I looked at her and said, I don't know anything about pen testing. And her response to me was just simply, you're smart, you'll figure it out. That's why I want you. And so, that's where it started. It's just, that's kind of taken off from there. I got into consulting for quite a while after, so first, I was in that role for 6 years and ended up, being the leader on that team, managing that team and handling their vulnerability management and bringing in some new disciplines and whatnot. But then, I got into consulting and did consulting up until January of this year.
Oh.
And it was January this year that I switched over and joined a product company. It's an organization that does a lot of stuff that I really believe in. And so, now I find myself in this role we call an application security advocate.
Okay.
Which basically means my primary role is to go out, be in the community, share content that I create online, or go out and speak at conferences like here I am at RSA. It's pretty exciting stuff. So that's kind of the story of how Alyssa got to where she's sitting right now.
That's amazing. In terms of, so you said the position that you're in right now, is that mostly sort of an educational, is the goal to put out educational content and like awareness, or what kind of content are you focusing on?
I mean, it's content related to the areas that we specialize in. So we are focused on DevSecOps and really how do we get developers and security and operations working together in a culture of shared responsibility where everybody feels enabled and is enabled through tooling to be responsible for development, for security, for operations, and to do it securely. And so we really start at the developer level and trying to build tools that developers will actually adopt and use, and then spread the word from there. So my role is to really bring that message about DevSecOps and what we can do in that space and what DevSecOps is supposed to be to the marketplace, and then make the marketplace aware of what it is that Snyk does, but also just demonstrate the expertise that we have on this team. I mean, obviously I've been here for 15 years, and that's why I'm speaking on more topics than just DevSecOps. I'm speaking on, I spoke on deepfakes here at RSA, and I'll be speaking on that same topic again this Saturday at B-Sides Tampa. So it's not just about trying to sell it. No, it's really a role about trying to help the security community, and in my case, be better, get stronger, share knowledge, and continue to grow. And so it's a kind of exciting role.
That sounds like a really exciting role, and just like so much involvement. And I love what you're working on. It's so cool. Okay, so some questions related to International Women's Day. What advice would you give to women in earlier phases of their career, or even maybe high school, unsure of what they want to do, to encourage them to work in cybersecurity?
So the biggest thing, more than anything else, is understand that you belong. All too often, girls, women, we hear these constant messages that, tech is for guys, women don't belong, um, things like that. And there's just a lot of pressure for girls not to be involved in tech. And the fact of the matter is you do belong. I'm not going to lie. Women are sorely underrepresented in this industry. Even the most liberal estimates are about 20%. And so there's a lot to overcome there. But there are a lot of women out here doing amazing work. And, so whatever you can do to connect with them, and whether it's through, get on Twitter. Twitter is a great place to connect with the security community because everybody can see everybody.
Yep.
Someone shares something, you can interact with someone who has a really well-known name and is really popular in the industry, and you can interact with them directly. Do that. Have conversations. Don't just reach out and say, hey, I want you to mentor me or something, but have meaningful conversations with them, interact with them, learn from them, share your ideas, see what they think. But you have that ability, use it. And what you'll find is that the vast majority of people in this industry really want you to be here, and they want you to grow, and they want to help you do that. So don't be afraid to reach out, and understand that even though you may see heavy representation from a white male perspective, that is the dominant group
Yep.
in this industry, you do belong, and you should be here, and there are more like you here. You're not weird or a freak because this is the kind of thing that you're into.
Absolutely. I'm sure that definitely ties into your role with WOSEC as well.
Yes, it does. So yeah, Women of Security is an organization that was founded by two colleagues of mine, really centered around just how do we support and uplift each other as women. Again, one of those colleagues, she tells a really, really terrible story about her first conference, and she went into this conference and it was all men, and just how deflating it was, and how it almost drove her out of the industry. And so that was part of her inspiration for, ultimately founding this organization. And we're growing rapidly. We've got chapters all over the world. We've got, Nigeria, South Africa, France, all over the United States in different cities. And, our numbers are growing. We are working on establishing nonprofit status. We have a founding corporate sponsor now. And so it's really growing, and the whole goal of it, there's a number of different, women in cyber organizations, but ours is really meant to keep it more informal and really just focus on the networking side. It's not about, we do things around helping women build skills, like, co-sponsoring CTFs and things of that nature, but our real goal is just to help women feel represented, and help them connect with other women and see that this is a place you belong, and there are other people here who are going to support you along the way.
I really love that you're doing that. I think community is so important, and I feel like you leveraging social media in this day and age, and also connecting people, especially in a space like this, is just so important. And I think that you can really grow some strong connections. And I love what you said about Twitter, because that's how I found you. And it's been such an awesome tool to just really get connected with people. And going back to your other point that you said, instead of just asking people to be their mentor, I think starting those conversations is so important, just to really establish common ground. I think when you're a little bit younger or more inexperienced in the field, it just can feel so intimidating to reach out to someone that's, at a higher level or has a lot more of experience. And I think if you can just make it conversational, it makes the world of a difference, and just build that relationship.
And honestly, for me, when it comes to mentoring, the thing I try to stress to people is mentoring relationships typically happen organically. It's not something where you're just going to reach out to someone and say, hey, can you be my mentor?
Yeah.
Sometimes that can work, But usually that question comes after you've kind of established that relationship. So you've had some interactions, you've established a rapport, and you realize, yeah, me and this person really mesh. This might be a good person who can mentor me long term. And then you might set up, some regular mentoring sessions, or you might just ask them if they'll be available and be able to share information from time to time when you have ideas or questions that you want to ask. And that's what I try to stress to people about mentoring. It's not as effective if you just reach out. And unfortunately, I mean, I've had people who've done that, who've reached out to me, and they're just like, will you be my mentor? And a lot of times I mentor a number of people, and so I can't mentor everybody. I wish I had the time to, I really do.
Yeah.
But I'll tell them point blank, like, you know what, I can't be a regular mentor for you, but by all means, my DMs are always open.
Yeah.
Reach out, send me a message.
Yeah.
If you've got questions, there's something, just come to me with specific questions and I'm happy to answer them, or get you connected to somebody who can. And that's the other thing, is a lot of times when someone's looking for a mentor, if I can't help them, I do try to connect them with somebody who can. I think that's really important because, again, it is all about building this network. And in particular in security, when you're trying to build a career, having a network of people that you can rely on and work with is so crucial.
Yes, absolutely. And also one other thing that I just wanted to tie into that, a resource that I found to be really helpful is finding different individuals that maybe have more experience than me if I'm looking to learn or grow, and just really even asking them, like, what are your favorite blogs or YouTube channels to watch, or podcasts to listen to that I can kind of learn, because I think that those resources can be so helpful, especially just getting them like through word of mouth versus Google, because everything is just so, there's ads, and it's just nice to hear word of mouth. So that's just been really helpful, and I love that you keep your DMs open for people. That's really cool.
I mean, it's a little stressful at times, unfortunately, because keeping your DMs open also means that all the garbage comes through. And yeah, I've learned that as follower count increases, the amount of garbage you get in DMs, unfortunately, increases as well. The amount of harassment you receive, and that's an unfortunate part of being on social media, right? I mean, you open yourself up to that. But yeah, it is that important to me that I do keep them open, because I really do want to connect with people in the industry and help bring more people in. And if I close my DMs, it makes it tough. That's just it's just one more roadblock that people who are already encountering a bunch of them have to overcome. And I don't want that to be the roadblock that, broke the proverbial camel's back and caused them to forget about their aspirations to get into security.
Yeah. We might have kind of gone through this a little bit already, but just to formally ask the question and see if there's anything else you have to offer, what advice would you give to women out there who are looking to climb the ladder in cybersecurity, or maybe in any other field?
Yeah, so this is a tough question, right? And I wish I had the answers, because unfortunately it's even impacted me. I've had some trouble as a result of my gender and trying to advance. And it's, some of the mentorship is huge, right? Having good mentors. I just met with one last night. I don't know that he knows I call him my mentor. He used to be my boss, and then he left the company, and so I don't know that he knows that I look at him that way. But it's important to have mentors like that, people who you can trust, who you can talk to, who you can ask questions, and who have been there and know how to do that. And yeah, it might not always be the people you expect. I think part of it is understanding that there are just certain concepts that we face in the industry that we have to battle through. There are going to be biases. Companies are getting better at it. The industry is getting better at it. Realizing how important diversity is from a business perspective, that like there is actually a business reason why diversity is important, and they're getting better. But we still have this trend. Women have a hard time moving past the manager level.
Yeah.
hey, myself included, it's women executives in particular are difficult to find. Um, and so there's going to be constant pressure in trying to, if that's what you're trying to do is to advance, you will encounter that. The big thing is to try to focus people on your potential, because what we do see typically, and studies have proven this, and women are generally judged based on their past accomplishments, whereas men are judged based on their potential for future accomplishments.
Okay.
And this is what leads to a lot of this bias. This is what leads to a lot of what we see in terms of representation and so forth. So trying to redirect people who might be evaluating you to see that you have potential and to try to get them to focus on that. It's not it's not an exact science. I can't promise you it's going to work, but definitely focus on that and try to help them see that, you know what, I have all the potential you could ever want. I have all the hunger you could ever want. You should be looking at me. I can bring you, that fierce presence that you need in that particular role.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. Let's see. So I just wanted to get a little bit more technical since you have been in the field for so long. And I think just in the general population, I feel there's just sort of a lack of basic just security measures that we can all take, or that people should take. And so maybe just to get started out, what would you say the top 3 ways are that people get hacked?
Passwords.
Passwords.
It's all about passwords. I mean, I say that kind of being a bit of a smart ass, but the reality is, if there was one thing I could change, it would be to help people understand how to be secure with passwords. People reusing the same password on hundreds of sites, it leads to this idea of what we call credential stuffing. So I use the same password on 100 different sites. One site gets exposed and my password gets exposed. Typically, it's associated with an email address, or it's associated with a user ID that I use everywhere. And so the attackers, when they get that information, they just go to other common websites, different social media platforms, and they just try that same combination of user ID and password, or email and password. And that's how they're breaking into people. So you find somebody who's using the same password on their dating app as they're using for their online banking. And suddenly now it's really easy to break in and to get into their accounts. What we're seeing slowly is more and more. Yeah, so with banking in particular, where they tend to be more immature, they're starting to implement what we call two-factor authentication. So sometimes this is in the form of you try to log in and then you get a text message with a code and you have to use the code to log in.
Yep.
Some of the better implementations now are things like the authenticator apps, like with Google, where you can log in and you put in your username and password and it prompts you for a code. You have to go on your phone and open up an app that gives you the code that you enter.
Yeah.
We have these what we call these U2F keys. So it's universal two-factor. It's actually a device that you use, and you use that in conjunction with your username and password. It's a little device. You plug it into the USB port. It prompts you. It says touch your device. You press it, and it shows that you have that USB key in addition to knowing the username and password. And all of these are things that help to defend, against issues of like password stuffing and or credential stuffing and other password attacks. So that is probably the biggest battle. And unfortunately, not every website is helping us out with that yet. There are a lot of sites that don't support multi-factor authentication, because the other attack vector we can really point to is email, right? These phishing attempts where people get an email, it looks legit, it's offering them a free Amazon card or something, and so they click the link and it takes them somewhere, and it looks like their their social media account or whatever, and they put in their credentials, and then you find out that it actually wasn't the site you thought you were logging into, and now those people have your credentials.
Yeah.
And so there again, had you had the two-factor authentication, even though you just gave up your username and password, they still don't have your second factor, whether it's your phone app or it's your U2F key or whatever it is. So it's something that has to happen both with users just being more aware and having some better practices, but we also need industry has to be accountable to this, and these websites, these app creators, they need to be better about the work they do. And I think there's a lot of work to be done yet.
In terms of, would you say that a lot of people are getting hacked based off of data breaches that are happening?
So not directly. Sometimes they do, because sometimes its passwords get exposed. But if we look at the bulk of the data breaches, they're not typically exposing user databases with full credentials.
Okay.
It happens, but people have gotten better. These organizations have gotten better, at least about how they store passwords in their systems, and they tend to protect that part pretty well.
Yeah.
What's getting stolen right now is people's identity data or other private data. So credit card numbers, social security numbers, birth dates, all that kind of stuff. More recently, passport numbers.
Yeah.
Thank you to MGM out in Vegas. So there's a lot of those types of things that are getting exposed where, so I wouldn't say that they necessarily get directly hacked. What happens instead is you get the identity theft that occurs as a result of that. And so, if I've got your password number, for instance, what can I do now that I've got that? I can probably, pretty easy to find out a lot of other information. Your password number is probably not the only thing I got. I probably got your name and address then too.
Yeah.
What can I do with that? Or I got your credit card information. Obviously, there's very simple attack vector there.
Yeah.
And that's where people are getting hit right now. It's not so much that, when I think of someone getting hacked, I'm thinking of someone breaking into their account.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes, I mentioned the credential stuffing before and how that works. And yes, sometimes that's still the case. But a lot of times it's other stuff. It's their private data being exposed. It's health records being exposed. And that's a big one right now. There's a lot of value in stolen health records. And so that's not them being hacked. That's an organization that they entrusted with that data getting hacked instead.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, there's so much in there. To go back to, was the USB product, is that a product, the 2F thing that you'd mentioned?
U2F, yeah, universal two-factor authentication. So, sorry, I'm not looking at the monitor at the moment here because I'm going to pull this out. So, I'll actually show this on screen.
Okay.
So this is what I'm talking about. This is a device from a company. It's called the YubiKey.
Okay.
And literally, you can see it's just a USB stick. I plug it in. It integrates, like Google, for instance, allows me to use this.
Yeah.
So when I log into Google, after I put in my username, I put in my password, it says insert your key. I put this into the USB slot, the little Y lights up, and I tap that, and it does some authentication on the back end and lets, and takes care of that. Now, and then they have other ones, like this is another version of the same thing. This is the one I use for my MacBook because MacBook only has USB-C. But yeah, so they've got different options, but that's what I'm referring to.
Okay. And so it sounds like you have to have a couple different ones based off of the ports that are on the devices.
Yeah, if you have multiple devices, so like it kind of depends, so up until I got a new MacBook, I had USB on everything and it was fine.
Yeah.
This one in particular, so I can also use it with my phone. Not only does it have the USB, but it also does NFC. So when I've got my phone and I'm just gonna, hold it up here and put it on the back and it'll authenticate when I'm in trying to get into Google or something.
Okay. Very cool. That's awesome. I did not know that, and I want to get one of those now. This is interesting. Do you happen to know if there are any ways for people to know if spyware has been installed on their phone or device?
So there are a number of different applications out there that'll do it. Again, here now you have to be careful because there's also a lot of nefarious products out there that claim to be scanners to detect spyware and such on your phone. Google, not Google, excuse me, Microsoft, I know has one that has been available for Windows devices for a while, but now they are expanding it and it'll be available on Android and iOS, for instance.
Wow.
I wish I could think of the name of it right now. Unfortunately, it's escaping me, but there was a press release on it just very recently.
Okay.
So there are tools out there, and honestly, that's crucially important, right? I mean, understanding, especially as a woman, there's unfortunately this idea of cyber stalking, and it's there's some really awful stories out there, and yes, unfortunately, you can say I'm being biased, prejudiced, whatever. Women are by and large the targets. It is not men that are typically being targeted. Yes, there are some cases where men are targeted too. I'm not going to deny that, but we can't deny the statistics either. It's very predominantly women, which is why I point that out, that as women, we have to be really very cognizant of the fact that our partners, if we give them access to our phones, what are they doing with it? So be careful. If it's your boyfriend who you're not even living with, why are you giving him the password to your phone? Things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Okay, very helpful. I can't wait to look up the Microsoft app that they're building. Okay, so next question. What are some best practices you suggest for users to protect themselves over Wi-Fi and potential hackers?
So Wi-Fi is a tricky one, right? Because we can sit here and say, and many people in this industry will sit here and say, don't use public Wi-Fi, don't use public Wi-Fi. You know what? Everybody uses public Wi-Fi. So shut up. That's not going to change. I mean, sorry, I'm blunt, very blunt sometimes.
No, I love it.
The reality is people are going to use public Wi-Fi. So first of all is being very aware of it. One of the best practices that I think goes unnoticed is not allowing your computer to automatically reconnect to public Wi-Fi spots.
Okay.
Unfortunately, one of the biggest criticisms I have of Apple right now is that these devices, the Macs, the iOS devices, they by default will automatically reconnect. And you have to actually take a few steps to turn that off. Thankfully, on like Android, for instance, it prompts you as you're making the connection. You can say, don't automatically reconnect. The reason I say this is a lot of those public hotspots have common reused names. So think about you get on an airplane and you sit down, and one of the ones that I know pretty well is Delta. I fly Delta a lot. And so I forget what the name of it is. Sometimes I think it's usually now it actually says like Delta Wi-Fi or something like that. But it's always the same name no matter what plane I'm on. And so what attackers can do is in environments where you're not even on a plane, if they set up a hotspot with that same name, your computer, if it's not already connected to a different hotspot, will see that, automatically connect to it. And now you're connected to an attacker's hotspot. And that's a problem because now anything you do on that hotspot, they have the ability potentially to initiate what we call a man-in-the-middle attack, where now they can potentially see data traveling between you and even secure sites. So that's a big one right there. The other thing that unfortunately is kind of an awareness thing, a lot of users don't understand what certificate errors mean. And so I mentioned that man-in-the-middle attack. If you're on a public Wi-Fi and you browse to a site that so say you go to a site like Google and you get an error that pops up and says there's a certificate error, there's a high likelihood you are connected to a rogue hotspot and someone is trying to conduct one of these man-in-the-middle attacks against you. So being very cautious of that. Now, the one caveat to that is typically when you first connect to the hotspot and it tries to connect you to, a lot of them you have to connect to a website and enter a password, or you have to acknowledge your terms of service or something. Sometimes when that occurs, you will get that first certificate error. But once you're connected, once you actually have internet connectivity, if you go to a site that and you get that message, you're not connected to the Wi-Fi hotspot you thought you were.
Wow, that has been actually happening to me for a while on one of my computers. So thank you for that. How do I just make it so that my device doesn't automatically connect to any Wi-Fi networks?
Just the ones that aren't your own, right? I mean, the
Okay.
chances of somebody spoofing like your home network, yeah,
Yeah.
could they do it? Sure.
Yeah.
The chances that they're going to are pretty small because that's a really targeted attack. So
Yeah.
unless somebody is like specifically targeting you because you're active on social media and they want to come after you or something,
Yeah.
the chances of that are pretty low.
Yeah.
Plus, you might notice it pretty quick when your home Wi-Fi shows up at Starbucks. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So hopefully that should wake you up right there and be like, all right, something pretty wild is going on here. This is a problem.
Yeah.
But no, it's the public ones that you want to make sure that you set to not reconnect. And the certificate errors, they occur for a lot of reasons. They're not necessarily just that issue, but that's one to be aware of. That's when you should start to be suspicious that maybe something like that is going on.
Okay. Okay, cool. What are your top tips to avoid being hacked on social media?
Passwords are the biggest thing by far. Passwords. I can't stress enough.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, being extremely careful. I mean, it's kind of the same rules that we have for email, right?
Yeah.
If you get a DM from somebody, you get a Facebook message from somebody, if it's not somebody you know and they sent you a link, don't click it. For crying out loud, Twitter even warns you and it won't even show you the preview or anything about the link if it's not somebody that if it's not one of your followers or something.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't know them and you're not following them, be suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look at their profile. If they have like one follower and they're following like 100 people, chances are they are not legit.
Yeah.
So if you don't know who they are, there's no reason you have to respond to anybody. Don't feel that pressure. We're conditioned as human beings. We want to be nice. We want to be, we want to have good manners. And so when somebody comes and they send us a message, sometimes we just feel like this moral obligation, like we have to check it out and respond. Or sometimes we get excited too. It's like, oh, cool. Someone messaged me. Hey, there's a new person in my DMs. Who are they?
Yeah.
Be aware. We need to be a little more skeptical, unfortunately, in our world. We don't think critically enough about things anymore. We kind of accept. We want to trust everything, and that gets us into trouble. So yeah, you get a weird message, or the other one for me is if I get a message, a DM from anybody where they're for someone I don't know, and their first message is just hi or hello or how are you doing, I don't answer that because
Red
that
flag.
if it's someone who actually wants to reach out to me for something, they're in their first message probably going to, they might say that might be their first message, might be hi, but they're going to follow that right up with a message that tells me why they're contacting me.
Yeah.
And if they can't figure that out, sorry, I'm not going to respond to that because chances are, more often than not, it's not going to be somebody that I want to talk to. They're going to send me pictures I don't want to see. Hey, ladies, we know all about that, don't we? Oh, God. Those are things too. I mean, yeah, and obviously the pictures aren't going to get you hacked necessarily, but if they follow up with links or something else that they're trying to get you to follow, those are ways. So just having separate passwords for every site. I know it's a pain in the butt. Use a password manager.
Okay.
So here's something that'll anger about 50% of the security people out there when I say this. You know how for years we've told people don't write down your passwords?
Yeah.
If you have nothing else, get a diary and write down your freaking passwords. If that makes sure that you have don't write your user IDs with it necessarily.
Yeah.
But if you can at least have those written down in a diary, if that makes it easier for you to have a separate password for every site, please do that.
Yeah.
It's not the best solution. Obviously, if you lose that diary or something, now you better go out and change all your passwords. But, the risk of somebody getting a hold of that book, stealing it, and using it to get in your accounts is so much less than the risk of somebody getting a copy of your credentials that you've used on 100 websites and using it to get into, some of the others where you've used it. And, but the better way for those that are more technologically savvy, is to use a password manager. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, these are applications that are not your browser. So, Google Chrome and the like, they always want to save your passwords. I don't trust that so much.
Mm-hmm.
But having a third-party password manager like LastPass or 1Password or KeyPass, those are three of the big ones. And all they do is they store your passwords in a secure database. And when you go to those sites, they will automatically fill it in. What's better is that you can use those sites to generate a wildly random and difficult to break password, so that you don't even have to worry about someone brute forcing your password or cracking your password, because now it's this massively long string of random characters and whatever.
Yeah.
And what's cool with it is all these solutions they're able to sync across devices. So passwords that I've saved to my password manager on, say, my MacBook are now also there on my phone. And so, I might use the same sites from both. So now I have that information, those credentials on both of those devices.
Okay. Yeah, password managers can be so helpful. I think a lot of people just feel a little bit intimidated by them, but they're so helpful. I really
Yeah.
love password managers.
Well, that's why it's like even for the
Yeah.
baby boomer generation who probably aren't really going to be able to deal with that whole password manager idea.
Yeah.
That's like there are companies that literally are producing little diaries that you can write all your passwords in. And if that enables you to use a separate password on every site, if that's what it's going to take, I would rather have you write them down in a book like that and have different passwords for every site than to go out there and to, use the same password everywhere, because that's the only way you can remember it.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Okay. So what are some of the steps that you'd recommend for people to take after they've been hacked?
So step one, again, is passwords. Change them right away. Change your passwords.
Yeah.
That's assuming that you can even get into that account. A lot of times, if a social media account gets hacked, they change the email address, they change the password, they change everything. So the best advice I have for that is actually before you get hacked, go in. If you go into your account, there's certain verification methods. This is again too where if Twitter, Facebook, all of those support multi-factor authentication, at least with SMS, which isn't the best, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Set that up and have that, because that'll help you not get hacked in the first place. If you get hacked, the best thing you can do is to contact that organization. Most of them have some type of abuse email address that you can contact to let them know that you've lost access to your account. Because what the attackers will do is once they get into your account, they're going to change your email address so you can't use the reset password functionality. They're going to change your password so you can't log in anymore. And now they have control of your account. And so the social media companies, your banks, most of these organizations are aware of that and have ways to deal with that. You'll probably have to go through a few steps of verification to prove that it is you who is asking to get access to your account back. But that's about the best you can do in that situation. So it's really more about taking those necessary precautions to not get hacked in the first place.
Yeah, sort of just being prepared initially. Yeah. Okay, cool. Is there any way for people to stay up to date on maybe your projects or your work or speaking engagements?
Yeah, actually all the above. So easiest is just to visit my website, which is just alyssasec.com. So it's ALYSSASEC.com. Visit that site. I have out there blogs on a lot of the stuff that I'm working on. I post all of my speaking engagements up there. So I've got the whole laundry list of my current calendar. After the speaking engagements are done, I do go back and update it, and I provide wherever possible. If there's video from those talks, I'll share those as well.
Okay.
There's an easy contact form out there if you want to get in touch with me. Of course, it's got the links to like Twitter and LinkedIn, and those would be the other things I could say. Is definitely follow me on social media. Alyssa M_infosec is my Twitter handle. Again, if you go to my website, there's a link there too. Definitely, I would love to have people, follow me on Twitter, connect to me, shoot me a DM. We can chat. I'll talk about whatever. I'm pretty open that way. I do use LinkedIn quite a bit from a professional perspective.
Yeah.
So a lot of what I'm doing within InfoSec specifically, I do use LinkedIn as well. And there, I forget the URL, I think it's like /in/Alyssa M-InfoSec, if I remember right.
Okay.
But again, if you go to my website, I've got links there. It's probably the easiest way to find it, rather than me try to remember it here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today for International Women's Day on behalf of IdentityIQ. I loved learning about everything that you've been up to and hope people find this information to be really helpful.
Yeah, same here. And I really appreciate you having me on. It's always nice to be able to reach out and connect with the community any way I can. So this is just one of the many ways that I'm fortunate enough to get to do it. So really, really appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I'll just close out and say, be sure to go to IdentityIQ.com to get signed up for services that we offer, like dark web monitoring and identity theft protection. If you'd like to see more interviews like this, feel free to let us know on our social media. You can find us at IdentityIQ on almost every network. We would love to do more interviews like this, featuring women in cybersecurity and other professionals. So definitely let us know. And thank you so much again, Alyssa. And I guess we'll close this out for today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.